Happy birthday, Veda.
Say thank you.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Wow. This is a funny blinky.
It glows in the dark.
I want to glow it in the dark.
You want to glow it in the dark?
Say hello to yourself. No. This is what happens when little Veda doesn't get beach vacation.
Daddy's falling. You're so fake. Look at that tongue come out.
Oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? What's that? Oh, dick. You're such a dick, little Veda. Blue. Uncle Blue. I heart you, little one. Little wobble eyes. Okay, hola, spotters, trollers, and milady. This is a very, very special installment of Soul Mechanics, going in the Approaching Nowhere course as a story that I've always wanted to tell in full. I'm going to do my best to give you the most adequate adaptation I am able. This video is to serve as a sort of time capsule, really, for however far off in the future it takes for our special guest to be able or interested in watching or to watch it. This is filmed. It's not going to post on today, but you know, it is being filmed. The introduction to it is being filmed on January 17th, 2020, which is the birthday of our very most beloved and blessed receiver, Madame Veda Rae, alias Madame Veda Grace Ramsey. Her alternate name being Veda Grace, which I think some people didn't like that, but I think it's fitting considering that, Madam, your parents, your peers, and most particularly myself, we're going to ensure that you are a very, very graceful being indeed. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how everything turns out. We're going to provide you the very best that we possibly can. Of course, I can't ensure that I'll even be there. Hopefully I'm watching this with you at some point, but you know, there's no telling what the future might bring at this point. We are effectively in a whole new world. And this whole new world has been created largely by the greater endeavor that we are in fact a part of. And myself, your mother, and your father have created, orchestrated, and are hosting a faction of this greater endeavor, this worldwide initiative that has gone about doing such great things with the world and with the people living in it, that we've managed to alter it in just such a way as to make it somewhat better, slightly better every step of the way. We've been doing a damn fine job at chipping away at the negativity and the generally down set and dark outlook that people tend to be having nowadays. Now, I don't know how old you're going to be when you watch this. I don't know, you know, at what point you're going to take an interest in seeing this or be capable of interpreting the values that I'm intending to present. But it could very well be that you're living in an entirely different world altogether, where this negativity, this shameful behavior we tend to see in people no longer exists at all, because of course we are going to keep on fighting and fighting and fighting until it doesn't. Now, whatever the case, whether we have already won this great battle we're in, or we're still working at it, everything that we've built here, your mom, your dad, and I, everything that we've created, everything we've constructed, everything that we've been devising, most especially this channel and its legacy, is for you, ultimately. This is all for you, and we're going to do our very best to ensure that it's quite a treasure for you to inherit. As it stands right now, we're not doing as great as we'd like to be, but we'll get there. We are affecting quite a great impact upon the world behind the scenes, whether people see it or not, and it's not really so much our intention for people to see it anyways. There are people who do, but it's few and far between. However, of course, this team that we're collecting, this collaborative effort we're building of people who do indeed see it and are capable of beholding, what treasures we are in fact investing here. These are your people too. You're going to inherit their legacies as well. Someday you're going to be in the pilot seat for all of this. And again, I'm going to hope that when that time comes, it's not quite as difficult for you as it has been for us. We're going to ensure to the best of our abilities that your life is not nearly as difficult as ours was. However, of course, there is a certain standard measure by which one has to be challenged and even damaged in life in order to even meet with the true self, let alone engage and become, that realized version of oneself that's in most cases hidden within. Though we will, again, we'll do our very best to hopefully ensure that perhaps this truer, deeper version of yourself even never needs to be hidden. But of course, you'll be exposed to, you'll be exposed to social influences, you'll be exposed to social programming, you'll be exposed to public education and things of the sort. So it's very likely that you will have to fight to some extent, but we're going to have your back every step of the way, milady. Anyways, this story is about your parents and I, and it's regarding how we met and to what extent we are in fact associated. Don't smoke. I'm going to teach you what poor influences I have upon you, but some of the bad habits that your parents and I share, we're going to try and sway you away from. Of course, you're free to do as you please and make your own mistakes and learn from the consequences of your own actions. But hopefully you'll advance much faster than we did and be much more capable than we ever could have been. But anyways, you're depending on how old you are, your mother and your father and I, or your mommy and your daddy and I, we are very, very closely entangled. We always have been. In fact, we were destined to work together, to be a trine of sorts, the three of us, and we do in fact actually have verifiable evidence to this effect. We can prove that destiny had a hand, that in fact we were fated to come together. Synchronicity played a large part in us meeting, us coming together, and us knowing each other. In fact, it's the glue that binded us. It was a binding agent in our relationship, ultimately. It kept us together, and it kept us working together, and it aligned our paths in such a way as to be stuck together for the most part in this debacle of life, this somewhat bad dream we've been having. But of course, it becomes a great dream at times. It's a beautiful, beautiful dream to be having, most especially where we consider what potential opportunities you'll be afforded and what opportunities we're capable of making available for you. And we're working our ass off for it. And do try to keep in mind others, such as your grandmother. I hope she's still kicking ass along with us. Some of your peers, such as Trinity, Harper, these people hopefully will be exceptionally important to you, very closely related to you, and they are wonderful people that we've helped. Some have helped raise us, some we've helped raise, but we're all a family unit here working together. ultimately in an effort that amounts to your legacy. The legacy of a spotter. Your sacred heritage. Now, where I met your father, that came first. He and I were very young. We were, I don't know, teenagers maybe, probably not even, maybe like 11 or 12 years old, and I had seen your father walking down the street. I was with a few friends of mine. I hung out with the older kids, and we were at Taco Bell. And we were sitting in Taco Bell just screwing around. We were not stoned, I assure you, but I did faint in the line at one point. That was awkward. However, we're sitting in Taco Bell eating whatever we can afford to purchase and just, you know, bullshitting with each other for the most part, when I see this young man, this boy, walking down the street. I have no idea who he is. I've never seen him before in my life, but something clicked in my brain. My eyes fixed on him. I looked at him and I said to my other friends, I said, you know what, that guy's important. Something about that guy. I said that. I actually voiced it. I said, there's something important about that guy. And lo and behold, they told me, hey, we know him. He happened to be a kind of an acquaintance of theirs that they'd hung out with periodically from time to time. And so we met with him, we spoke with him, we started talking, hanging out for the most part. It was kind of an awkward scenario for me. I was the runt of the litter at that time. I was the little guy that got kicked around, nobody really cared so much about. He was, you know, I was the, what's the word, I was like the comic relief of the party throughout those times, and wasn't really taken into such great consideration. And your father, who was the boy that I had seen walking down the street, Robert Ramsey, he and I don't think even really got along so much back then, but eventually we got to know each other, and we found that there were certain shared interests, most especially the cartoon show Dragon Ball, which hopefully is still running and you're a fan of. At the very least, we know you'll be a fan of to some extent or another. But it was actually Dragon Balls that got us so closely acquainted. Firstly, there was a young lady I had met who actually introduced me to this heritage, to this legacy, a young lady named Ariel, who took me on as a student and trained me. Her story I will tell in other episodes, how she and I met, but that was quite a... So, sorry to interrupt so abruptly, but something that I felt needed to be added to the story, something that I had forgotten to input, was probably one of the most important factors as regards the relationship that did develop between your father and I, was that when I was very young at one point, as I said, he and I didn't really get along. We weren't like the closest of friends at the time, but we were hanging out together in the parking lot next door to his house, his childhood home, at one point, and everybody else had disappeared. It was just the two of us hanging out there, and there was a group of like bully kind of kids, real asshole types that were, you know, would start fights with people, pick on people and shit, and I had done something really stupid to piss them off, which I was kind of the bad guy in this scenario. I had kind of picked on one of their friends in a manner of speaking, so it was deserved what had transpired, but your father was not really even paying attention to me, didn't seem to care so much about me, we didn't really even know each other at the time so well. We just met in passing, and these bullies, they ganged up on me, a whole bunch of them, these bigger kids, and they were kind of pushing me around, they were threatening me, and it was a very scary situation. I didn't know how to react. I had no training or anything of that nature. I was very young. I was a young teenage boy, and I was on rollerblades too, so I was like very out of sorts. I couldn't even keep my footing, and it was in the snow as well. And these kids were really going to beat the shit out of me, and your father, he stepped in, and he shunned them away. He told them, you know, if you're going to fuck with this dude, you're going to fuck with me. You'll have to go through me, essentially, is what he said. And it gave me a chance to get out of there. Essentially, he told me to get out of there, and I ran away. I was afraid. And I think but he protected me in that, so I don't know what happened, what transpired after that, if they actually got into a scuffle or what, but he protected me, and that was what built a bond between us, and I think that's what most prominently infused this or ingrained this idea of physiological training in us that, I said to him later thereafter that I don't ever want to be in a position like that again, and we devoted ourselves to physiological training as per the Dragon Ball concept that we had derived, and that's how our friendship developed, because I had told him I want to ensure that I'm never put in a position like that again, and you know what? Never was. I mean, I've gotten into scuffles, I've gotten hurt, I've got hurt really bad, I've gotten jumped by people where I couldn't even fight back, but I've never been put in a position where I didn't know how to handle it, ever again. So, that's a lot from the future. We'll cut back to the past right here. Miraculous event indeed. There was a hell of a lot to it that went down that was just beautiful and amazing and just astounding insofar as regards the synchronicity of it all, the destiny that played into everything. And there was a great deal of foreshadowing, there was a great deal of mystery, there was a great deal of awe and adventure. And your father and I shared in this after we had become aware of synchronicity. We were given a book that we read called the Celestine Prophecy, which by now you should have become acquainted with, should be quite familiar to you. We read this book and it introduced us to the concept of synchronicity and how it plays out, the concept of how destiny progresses and how one can engage it directly. And he and I took a specific interest in this, and though our paths were separated for a while, I was with Ariel. She was training me in this way, teaching me how to engage this, teaching me how to make note of it, teaching me how to direct it, even though at the time I wasn't aware that was what she was doing. I was just kind of following her lead, but ultimately it turned out that she had equipped me with everything I would need to become what I am today, a network director, which is what you as well will be. And your father, who we called Boob, that is his nickname, Boobie, he went about his own path, learning in much the same way, much along the same lines that I did, although his interests differed to some extent. He is a green, I'm a blue. I took a more psychological approach and worked with DreamWorks and such projection, while he became more interested in the mechanics of life and generally the biological factor, you could say the physiological factor. But what brought us together was that Dragon Ball Z and the whole concept of training ourselves, becoming stronger, becoming equipped and empowered, especially the idea of progressing in such a way as to evolve our very physiology. And that's what ultimately brought he and I together, and we did train in that way. We trained in martial arts, we trained in various physical disciplines. There were various teachers that came into play, mentors, spotters, as it were, that aided us in our progression. And that's how we met and eventually became adoptive brothers, what we called the brothers of old. We became very closely entwined in there. Once that bond was made between us, that we did in fact see each other as being brothers, there was no breaking it. We had times of falling out for the most part, a little bit here and there, but never so far as to break away. And we were always just the very closest of friends. There was nobody else that ever came between us, nobody else that was quite as closely acquainted. There was, beyond the two of us, it was kind of like that was it. We were pinned together, and everything else was he and I against the world for the most part, until we met your mother. For several years before I met your mother, I'd been having dreams of a girl that I danced with, a partner, an ultimate partner. And in these dreams, it was like she and I would dance around, we would travel on adventures. I think we were mercenaries, but for the most part kind of like thieves. We went and we stole artifacts that we believed were precious but dangerous, that there was this other character in the dreams that wanted to acquire these objects, and we had to get them away from him because this person was evil in some way and was going to misuse them. And it was quite an epic fantasy adventure that I had in these dreams ongoing for years, this recurring dream where I had this beautiful, majestic partner. and I had named her Ray in dreams. That's what I had called her. That's the name I was given, and she called me Blue, which is where Blue comes from. That's why my nickname is Blue. But you may call me Sir. However, the dreams ended abruptly at one point when we began our initial project that would ultimately result in the status initiative, what we called Project Philanthropy. Essentially, my brother, your father, and I had decided to collect information regarding our particular practices and training measures. Just collect as much information as we could and build a library and share it with people, teach people everything that we had learned in an effort to bring them up faster, to bring them to where we were as fast as possible, so that we could create a collective of people that were, you know, essentially kind of like elite insofar as regards this particular legacy. And there were several occasions where people sabotaged us, the library was destroyed or stolen. We had a lot of problems with this. But at one point, we had it kind of fastened. We were doing pretty well, and we had kind of a headquarters in play where we were keeping the library. And from time to time, the person who lived there, the person who owned this home and looked after our library, would bring people he had met who had certain problems to this headquarters and introduce them to me, knowing that I could help them in some way. That's what I've always done. I was the vanguard. I was the person who pushed the limits and did things before other people, ahead of other people, and to a much further and deeper extreme than other people, in an effort to get ahead of them so that I could warn them of oncoming conflicts or dangers, so that I could, you know, overcome certain obstacles in advance so that they would not have to meet with them so harshly. But B, I would essentially help people in that way. I would utilize the knowledge or the conditioning I had incurred in order to help people with whatever problems they had, especially as regards the psychology of the issue. And on one fated night, this person who owned the library brought home a certain somebody, and he calls me up and he says, "You need to get over here and meet this person. She needs your help. She has a problem." I believe the problem was regarding her boyfriend at the time. This is another factor that's going to come into play, but I came up there to meet with this person, and I walk into the kitchen of this house, and there before me is this stunning, just outstandingly beautiful young lady with long dreadlocks with colors in it and everything, and she was just the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, and she's dancing in the kitchen alone. Nobody else is in there, and she's dancing. And I saw her dancing, and I saw that this person before me, this was the girl from my dreams that I'd been having. And in fact, just before then, one of our friends, I believe it might have actually been your father, alerted me to this fact. He said, "That looks like the girl from your dreams," because I had been drawing pictures of her. And I don't have any of the pictures that I had drawn back then, but they were very meticulous, very well drawn, very realistic pictures that, in fact, were identical to her. Like, it was almost like taking a photograph of her. The pictures that I have to show you here, which I'm going to pop up here, are they're not as well done. They're not even close to what I had done before, but that's pretty much how I got it down pat to where I could draw it very easily. And I drew pictures of this character, which we used in what we wanted to be like comic books and such. We were intending to make comic books. We had this whole kind of endeavor, this company sort of organization planned out, the garden program, and what we were going to create, all of these different fictitious works and such, and present my thesis, which eventually I wrote the thesis, and it was in the form of a story regarding my life leading up to that point. And I gave a copy to your mom, I gave a copy to my mom, I gave a copy to an elderly woman that I looked after in the nursing home later on when I became an STNA, and I gave a copy to an ex-girlfriend of mine who is actually responsible for the entirety of this endeavor. She's the reason why this whole internet faction began in the first place, so many thanks to her for that, although it took her breaking my heart quite sharply in order to make that happen. That was a troublesome time in my life, but that's not this story. anyways, he had alerted me. He said, "I think that's the girl from your dreams. It looks just like her." And of course, I walk in the kitchen, and there I see her. It is the girl from my dreams. It was the fabled Ray. And so, indeed, destiny had played a part in bringing us together. There were synchronicities involved in her arriving there that I'm not sure I can adequately recount here, but I can recount that, you know, I've been having these dreams recurring for years before then, so much so to the point where I could draw a perfect portrait of this person, who indeed turned out to be your mom. So, yeah, she and I were fated to be partners, and lo and behold, we are partners here, even though there was a time where she and I were together. We had fallen in love, and we were in fact married by a practitioner of the Buddhist arts illegally. We were not legally married, but we were illegally married for quite some time, for years in fact. That we were just our bond was unbreakable. We never had a single problem, never had a single fight. Our relationship was nothing short of perfection. And we did dance on the rooftops, and we danced in the streets. We danced a lot. Before she and I got together, we would dance together, and we had kind of like a rivalry going on where we would, you know, poke at each other in a flirtatious kind of way, kind of banter back and forth with each other as though we were like a rivalry, as though not as though we were enemies, but as though we were kind of feuding with each other, pushing each other, challenging each other, making fun of each other, even until one fated night where I believed that, yeah, I had fallen so deeply in love with her, but she was with another friend of ours, and they were going on a camping trip the following day, and I was stunned, I was arrested in the sense that I believed if I let her go without talking to her, without telling her how I felt, then I would lose her entirely. I would never have my chance to be with her. And so I told her one night, the night before they left, I said, you know, I'm in love with you, and I can't let you go without you knowing that. And she said to me, kiss me, and I kissed her, and we were together from that point forward. She did not go on the camping trip. We stayed together, and for 24/7 we were together for a long while after that. But as fate would have it, there came a time where I got injured pretty badly. This is a story for another time, but to sum it up, I got injured pretty badly, and I was incapable of taking after her. I was incapable of keeping up with her even. But throughout the time that we were together, we did train together in these practices, and I did pass on the legacy to her. I did teach her everything that I knew at the time, and later on, of course, she would come back and school me. You know, she would advance quite a ways in other facets and teach me, and together all three of us, you know, learned from each other and kind of merged together into this trine that we've become now. But when I got injured, when I got hurt, I had to let her go. I had to say, I can't, you know, I'm no good for you anymore. I'm not good enough for you anymore. And we parted ways, and I left her in the care of your father, whom I trusted to take care of her, and, you know, here we are. We have you from that, and, you know, their relationship is amazing. I'm hoping. I don't know everything about them. I don't, you know, keep in touch with them 24 hours a day, but from what I can tell, their relationship is blossoming, and, of course, they have you, and it seems to have worked out just fantastically. So, I mean, that's the story as it stands. You know, there were several factors that come into play to lead us to believe that, in fact, we were all fated to be together, and I mean, here we are doing what we're doing, and we are doing great things. We're doing great things as it stands, and I'm very much hoping that when you do, in fact, watch this, that you'll see how great an impact we've made upon the world, and, you know, hopefully this will be just, I'm going to ensure that this whole thing will be quite a legacy for you to inherit. And so I just want you to know how much we all love you, and how much I love you, and just so happy to have you here. And we're gonna make a great world for you, milady. So, okay, madam, sorry to interrupt a second time from even further in the future, but your mommy and I, depending on how old you are, your mommy or your mother and I, have a message for you as well as for our future selves.
Hi, Veda. Happy birthday.
Oh, also, we will have, compounded some clips for you before this of you, particularly you throwing obnoxious fits, and of course your dad, who was apparently too lazy to give us any input, but he said hello. So, messages for future Veda or present Veda, depending on your perspective, from me, particularly from your Uncle Blue. A, follow our lead, pay attention, be inspired, be interested, be invested, and engage. Master the sword at least, but get a grip for weapon, the appropriate, proper use of weaponry in general, which is I will give to you free of charge, wholesale. B, try not to get too intimately involved with men who are similar in ways to your Uncle Blue. 3,
Or women.
or women
Or
women that
whatever.
are like me are cool.
Or
But,
whatever.
what was the third one? I think that was about it. Master the sword, the stick.
Nunchucks.
Have a thorough discipline. We're gonna try and get the nunchucks mastered for you by the time you see this. So that's the one weapon that I haven't gotten such a great grip on. I do have a feel for it though. And just be invested, be engaged, be in the game, be in play.
Don't do drugs.
Try not to do too many drugs, but dabble, for sure.
Well, dabble is different than experiment. Everybody experiments. That's normal. And okay, and whatever, as long as you're safe.
Well, as I stated in my video that I already had made for you in far off in the past on your birthday, hopefully you will not wind up having to hide the deeper aspects of yourself at all. At the very least, you won't have so much trouble getting in touch with them, but alchemy might come into play, and of course, if you decide to dabble in any kind of substances, we're here to guide you on that. Don't ever think we're not. Don't ever, if you're going to do that, let us show you how to do it safely.
Oh, that's pretty good. We had a wonderful day today for your birthday, and you opened up lots of presents and ate cake, and it was really cute. You actually had a dress on. There were some pictures of it, of a 65-year-old dress that your Grandma Ramsey wore when she was 3 and 4 years old, and all of the women on their family, on their side of the family, dad's side of the family, wore that dress, so that was pretty cool. It's like a red with white striped. It was pretty cute, but heirloom type of
Like an old
situation,
ballroom
I guess.
dress?
No, just like a cute little dress. I don't know, it was adorable. A little collar and whatever, but
That's cool.
but it was in really good shape, and Aunt Kim brought it over and put it on you, and your Grandma Ramsey almost peed her pants. She was like, ah! It was so cute. It was really, really cool. So we had a wonderful day for your 3rd birthday. I don't know when you'll be watching this, but it seems to me that the most prescient thing that I would like to communicate is something that actually happened very recently. Certain discussions that I've had with, other people and problems that they were, having. So that seems, it's in the forefront, it's in the moment, it's right now. I'm going to use that as a sign.
Queued up.
Yeah, I'm going to use that as a sign that it could, it's probably relevant to be communicated in in whatever way. So without going into any kind of details or whatever, this person was having a problem dealing with a lot of kind of compounding negative things happening in their life and feeling way out of control. And one of the things that kind of goes into that is we were just speaking about this earlier, alienating yourself into kind of being in this lonely state where you couldn't possibly imagine anyone else knowing what you're going through, which is sometimes true. There's plenty of people that won't have any idea, but there's also millions of people that do understand suffering. And even without all of those people on the planet, there is still family members and friends and loved ones that are able to empathize and also love and care about this person. So it seems a little kind of they were going out of their way to alienate themselves, basically, into feeling like they're, spiraling out of control or whatever. And a lot of factors go into that. I mean, maybe he was PMSing. I don't know. But whatever the reason, the one, that moment was extremely difficult to have control and power and optimism, kind of. A storm within the mind surges. But as I communicated to this person just a few minutes ago, there is always a rainbow after that storm. And once you are able to gain your power and gain some control over that hurricane raging in your mind grapes, then it passes and it goes back up to a upswing, basically, and it'll happen again and again and again and again, and that's just what life is, and you fucking roll with it. Oh, sorry, excuse me.
Certainly she'll be vocal.
I don't know. I don't want to be too vulgar.
She's gonna be.
I'm somebody's mom.
She's gonna be trained by me. She's probably gonna be saying fuck a lot.
Well, whatever.
Hopefully, that message for myself, of course. Well, a disclaimer for anybody that might be watching that's like a parent buff. There are natural remedies and herbs and such. There are plants provided by the earth that are here for purposes. Then there are drugs, especially like prescription drugs that are utilized for specific purposes, medicines, and then there are narcotics, where I say that if Veda would like to get, dabble in that sort of thing, we're here to guide her. Narcotics are off the table. We are not going to allow her to do any damaging, dangerous substances if we can help it. We're talking about natural remedies. We're talking about experimental alchemical substances, things that are in fact safe and healthy and beneficial to some extent or another.
Yeah, there's a distinction, I think.
B, a message for me.
That kind of goes without saying.
Yeah,
I should hope.
Just to get that.
Yeah, we're not going to be, showing you how to smoke or whatever.
No, nobody's going to. Hopefully you won't run into that sort of thing. I mean, you'll run into it for sure, but
Everybody
hopefully you
does. It's a
you
human
won't
thing.
become involved with it. And if
Right.
you are, we're gonna bust your ass and get you back to baseline.
And then she'll just stab you with her sword. So, good luck with that.
B, again, master the fucking sword, master the stick, master yourself. And for me, message for me, do try to remain alive long enough to be watching this with her, sir.
Well, whatever the case may be, I thought it was relevant and on the spot to remind you of all the things that came up in this other critical issue that was happening earlier today, which is basically when you feel out of control, when you feel like you have nothing to hold on to, and there is no power within yourself, that is an illusion. And no matter how many people are standing with you, no matter who has felt what for why and when, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is that you realize that there are many things that you can control in your life. There are things that you can't, and that's fine. We all have that.
People who love her.
But there's lots of people that love you, and there's also lots of things that you do have control over. So in those moments, when you feel like you're drowning and you have no power, hold on to those things that you can control and gain power over yourself, one little tiny thing at a time.
If
And
need
in
be,
that
you can
way-
take the whole bucket You can
Yes.
carry the world.
There is,
You can do anything.
I don't know how else to explain it, but a valve of love that you can gain from the universe, that is always there, that is constant, that is never ending, that is readily available.
It is at your disposal.
If you choose to hit that tap and to take that and appreciate it, and gratitude is a good way to start that process. But it's always there. There's no reason to turn off that tap and to feel like you are not loved and you have no love or gratitude, because there's always something, no matter how small. And when you grab onto that and focus it, it grows. And your gratitude grows and your love grows. And I can't explain or define how much I love you.
Yes, we love you. Even if I'm not alive, I love you. I am still loving you. And I'm passing on everything I can right here. Your mother and I are passing on everything we can. This channel is dedicated to teaching everything that we have and sharing everything that we have to share, giving everything that we have to give. So watch the channel. It's all archived here. Everything that we have for you up until this point, throughout the course of it, is going to be provided for you here. Most especially in the case that I, or God forbid, either one of us might not be there. But that would most likely be me. So
Well,
we're going to make sure your mom will.
Whatever happens, there is love in the universe for
And as
you.
regards people who love you, you know, as it stated, we love you,
Well,
but we're providing you here people who love you already by default.
Yeah, exactly. In the spirit of complete, honesty and realism, there are some people that don't have anyone that loves them. You know what I mean? In those extreme situations, and even for those souls out there,
That
there
love is
is
available.
still love in the universe
There
that you
is
can tap into.
there is life in the world. That life that's in the world, it's in you. It is you.
And it's intelligent and
don't
conscious.
ever let anyone fucking convince you otherwise. We're trying to show you, especially as regards the videos we're making right now surrounding this area and time, we're trying to show you, how wrong things can go, in what way and for what reasons, and don't fucking let that happen. Ever.
I imagine you probably heard her say it at least a few times, but your grandma, Richie, my mom, always told me when I was younger, especially during those teenage years, to never let anyone steal your joy. And I think that's a real simplistic kind of version of what I'm trying to say, is don't let them steal your joy.
And don't hide yourself. Don't steal yourself. Be visible. Be responsible. Be flexible. Be lucid.
And be grateful.
Be grateful.
I'm grateful for you. I love you so much.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for right now, but we're going to make more immediately hereafter for you, another episode. For anybody else who's watching, fucking stay tuned. Let's kick ass together, and remember, we're building a future for our future. This is most presciently indicated in as regards Madam Veda Rae, Blessed Veda Rae, alias Veda Grace.
Faye Grace. You have an extra middle name, by the way. That was not my idea. Your dad just popped off with
I already
that
mentioned this earlier. I
after
said some people didn't like it.
you were born.
But it
just
fits.
like, hey, by the way, let's throw an extra name in there. Never even talked about it before, ever, but okay.
It fits because you are going to be one hell of a graceful person.
Yes, I get it. I appreciate it. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful name, but it's just too many names.
Well, no, the way I put it in the early
too many.
videos, that it's alternate names, like Kakarot and Goku.
I guess.
She has an alternate name.
I like Faye. That was my grandmother's name.
Yeah.
And I like that you
There's another
carry
alternate
that,
name, so.
and it helps me to remember her, and I think it's great, and I like it. So I don't know where Grace came from. That name didn't come from anything.
Veda
except out
Fae.
your dad's butt.
Veda Fae is the official name for you, madam. Should you be questioning that at any point, Veda Fae, and Veda Rae is my name for you, which I'm going to use. So I don't.
Whatever you want to do.
You're named after her.
We love you.
In a manner of speaking. So yes, we love you very much. As stated, thank you to everyone who's attended. We shall be moving along immediately hereafter. So, from the future, love you guys. Thanks for watching. Kila Salai, Terviuni Siari, Namaste.
Peace. I don't know. I can't remember what the thing was.
It's like Hopono Ono.
Oh, okay.
Hopono Ono. Okay, one last thing before we cap this off. Of everything you may have learned, everything we may have taught you, everything that may make up the constituent person you become at this point, remember one thing above all else. Protocol. 3 simple rules. Do not cause harm unless it's in defense of yourself or others. Do not tell lies unless it is to prevent damages, to prevent harm. Do not cause divisions unless it's to remove fraudulent or damaging influences. Maintain that protocol. There is life in the world. We've already mentioned this. Whatever you want to call it. You want to call it the source, or you want to call it God, or you want to call it, identity, yourself, the soul, whatever. There is a life in the world. There is a living force in the world, and you are a part of it. So long as you maintain that protocol, it will look out for you. It will back you up every step of the way. And even in the darkest moments when you think that it's betrayed you in some way or another, trust me, it will turn out to be a blessing in disguise so long as you maintain that protocol, or at least do your very best. Remember that. Once again, Kila Salai, Terviuni Siari, Namaste.